Well, good morning. Welcome to Grace. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Tim, and I'm one of the pastors here. If you are a guest, you're joining us on a great weekend as we're kicking off a brand new series called What It Means to Be. It's going to be a series of 5 conversations that are going to be absolutely both encouraging and challenging to you, and we're glad you're here at the start of it. All right, as we get rolling into this and understand what it means to be something, I'm gonna do something completely different, and I'm gonna ask for all of us in the room to do some crowd participation, okay? So kind of settle in here for a second. Everybody, this is an all play. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna look at the timer in the back, and I'm gonna give you 15 seconds, and I want everybody in the room to tell me about what you had for breakfast, or if you didn't eat breakfast, what you liked about your breakfast today, what you didn't like, those kind of things. Everybody in the room, I know you're looking at me weird, just play along for a second, okay? It's gonna be good. So everybody in the room, when I say go, just talk back to me for 15 seconds, tell me about your breakfast today. Ready? Go. Come on. Okay. Yep, keep going. Keep going. Five more seconds, come on. Little more detail. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. That was incredibly clear. Loved hearing about all of your breakfasts, okay? Now, I wanna do one other thing. Mark Tiffany, will you come up here for just a second? I'm gonna give Mark Tiffany the microphone, and Mark Tiffany, I want you for 15 seconds to tell me about your breakfast today. What you had, what you liked, what you didn't like, yeah.
All right, so I had a banana for breakfast.
Oh, that's a good choice.
And then I decided to make one room for one person and take the shuttle, and they offered me a donut. So I got the donut and
you got
ate
a
that
bonus
for breakfast.
donut also. That's
Yes.
great. Thank you so much. Now, here's the reason why we do that. Because it makes no sense when you have so many different voices and opinions and things coming at you. It's so confusing. And what we want to do in this series is recognize culture is speaking so many different things at us about so many things of what it means to be whatever. But what we're committed to do in this series is dial it in to one singular voice, the voice of God through the Bible, and say, what does the Bible say about what it means to be, and deliver that level of clarity to you within this series. In fact, if you're following along in your notes, this is the first note. Our goal in this series is to bring biblical clarity to confusing conversations. Again, some of the conversations we're gonna have in this series are very confusing because of what culture says, or family, or friends, or what you read in a book, or whatever, and we just wanna bring biblical clarity to these conversations. And then for some of you, maybe you're even going, I would love to understand more of what the Bible says, but I don't really know what the Bible says. And for you, again, we want to bring that level of clarity because it's the job of every Christian to do this. The job of every Christian, next note here, is to live out the biblical worldview in the world we live in. If you are a follower of Jesus Christ, you are called to live out this biblical worldview in the world that we find ourselves in that's screaming at us in all these other contexts. Now, I also want to pause here for a second and say, if you're not a follower of Jesus, unapologetically, this is a great series for you to jump into. Because one, we want to clearly show you what the Bible has to say about these various topics. But even more importantly, we want to inspire you and actually try and persuade you to actually align your life with what the Bible says. Because we believe that it is the best for human flourishing when we live out God's design for what he calls us to be in all of these different areas. And then one other piece of this that's really important, because as you start to live this stuff out, the order with which we do things is deeply important. And this is there in your notes also. The reason why the order is important is because when clarity doesn't precede activity, the result is absolute chaos. When you just jump in and try and do something and you don't even have clarity around it, it leads to chaos. It makes me think about, I'm sure you've been in this situation where you've played charades of some type or some game like that with a group of people, and the person's up there and they're going for it and they're trying to act it out and they're doing the thing and everybody's yelling and you're yelling and they're going, no. And then they're doing it and everyone's yells another word and they go, no. And then they keep doing it, and everybody's getting frustrated and yelling, and then time runs out, and everybody goes, "What was the word?" And they open it up and they say the word, and it's like, that wasn't what you were acting out. And then they look and they go, "Oh, I didn't know what that word meant." And you get frustrated and you're like, "Come on." And the same can happen in our pursuit of Jesus. Like, we can literally be going in these various topics, like, I think I'm trying, I think I'm doing it, but when we don't have biblical clarity before we jump into the activity, it can just result in chaos. So we're gonna jump into this series and go through these various, 5 various topics. I hope you will join us for every single one of these conversations, because they're gonna be really good and clear in what the Bible teaches. So we're gonna jump into the first one today. And the first topic is, what does it mean, or what it means to be married? What does it mean, what it means to be married? Again, with biblical clarity, okay? Now, you can't give I can't stand up here and give a marriage talk without showing you like my wedding picture, right? So look at these kids, look at these guys. Some people were joking, they're like, "Is that your prom picture?" It's like, come on, man. We may have been young, all right? But my wife and I, we've been married for 27 years, and most of it's been great. Some of it's been really okay, you can clap for that, that's great. Most of it's been incredible. Some of it's been really challenging. But I remember on this day, like, you're sitting there, and I remember I was this young guy, like, I got this beautiful wife, like, I'm sweating a little, up there in my tux, and I'm so excited, and we're there on this day, and we're going through the ceremony and all the different things, and then it comes to the part where we're supposed to say the vows. And so I stand, and they're like, "Okay, are you deeply committed to this woman for life and all of this?" And then it's like, for richer or poor, in sickness and in health, for better or worse, till death do us part. And I'm like, yes. I had no idea what I was saying. And when you really think about it, like, in that moment, it's like, okay, for better or worse, yeah, but it's gonna be mostly better than worse, right? Like, I mean, there might be some challenging days or whatever, but it's like mostly better. Or it's for richer or poorer. Like, poorer? Like, what kind of are we talking about on the end of that? I mean, you're still gonna get a job, right? Like, you're not gonna spend a ton of money on credit cards, and you're like, we're just talking about that, Or it's like for sickness and in health. I mean, you're gonna get the flu sometimes. Maybe a knee replacement when you're old, like that kind of stuff, but it's gonna be mostly healthy, and then you drop the till death do us part. And it's like, probably, yeah, maybe. And I think what's crazy, and I wouldn't have said it at this point in time, and I wanted all those things to be true, but even as I reflect on that, there was a lot of, I'll hold up my end of the bargain as long as you do your end of the bargain. If you do these things, then I will do my things. And what that led to is really a contractual mindset within the context of my marriage. And I think if we're honest, like, our whole society bases the marriage relationship really at the foundation on a contract. If you do, then I will. And if you don't, I'll stick around long enough to change you, right? But instead of going, hold on, if we really dig at it, that is not God's design for marriage at all. And when we lean into God's design, when we understand God's design is the best to make us more like Jesus. It's best to give God glory in the world and to show him to other people, and it's the best for human flourishing. So we're gonna jump into this and talk through God's design. But before we do, I wanna pause, because this is it's an incredibly challenging topic to talk about when you have a room full of hundreds of people that are in all different places. And so I wanna pause for a second, just acknowledge the various people of you in the room. For some of you, you may be younger, or you've never been married, you're still dating, you're trying to figure that out. And I wanna look at you and say, man, from like an old dude that's been married a long time, if you will lean into this and get this right in your dating relationship and as you head into marriage and the choosing of your spouse, there's a whole bunch of us in this room that would say, do it. Because it will save you scars, it will save you struggles, and it will help you to live out God's design in marriage, which is what we want for you. For some of us and some of you in the room, you just say, I just got it like an average marriage. We like each other like most of the time. There may be 2 or 3 days in a row we don't talk to each other, but it's kind of everybody does that. It's kind of part of the strategy at times, you know what I'm saying? We're good teammates, we get along fine, and we have some good moments, some tough ones, And so many people in our culture have just settled for just average, mediocre marriages. And God has something much greater for you than that. And then there's some people in the room that are divorced. And some of you are divorced because there were some really challenging, difficult, horrible things that took place, either that you did or somebody else did, and it was painful, and you had to walk through that. For some of you, to be honest, you got divorced for some pretty lame reasons. And you sit here now and you're like, gosh, and you struggle with that. And wherever you are, whether you're remarried again or you're not, and I just know as we walk through some of it's going to be challenging. And I'm going to let you know that up front. But there's God's grace in the middle of all of it, no matter what you walk through, whatever you've been through, and wherever you're at right now, you get to start from right now forward, living out God's design boldly. And I want to encourage you in that. And then also, for some of you, this is great. For some of you in the room, and this is kind of maybe the last category, some of you in the room are single. And you're like, I know I'm called to be single. God has given me the freedom to be single, and I'm living deeply into that. And here's what I want to say to you. A lot of times the church does a really bad job of celebrating you. And actually, biblically, if you are single, are in the best possible position to run hard after God, to give your undivided attention to God and to people and to serve Him and to serve others. And if that's you in the room, I just want to celebrate you and say, run boldly after that and embrace that if that's what God has called you to do. All right, so no matter where you are, no matter what part of the category of marriage you find yourself in, every single one of us has been impacted by culture when it comes to this conversation. So before we jump into the passage today, I just want to recognize a few of those. For all of us, some people say, culture, some people say stay in your marriage even if it's not great because of the kids, right? Stay there because of the kids. And then other people are like, are you kidding me? Your kids would want you to be happy. Get out, be happy, find somebody else and run after that. There's tons of debates. There's laws around this. There's no fault divorce that has taken place. There are all kinds of huge debates around marriage. Some people say marriage is between a man and a woman. Some people say it doesn't matter, just find somebody that you love and that loves you and go after it. And all of these, another one that's, this is funny. Some of people are saying just stay married because you get tax benefits, right? And it's better for you that way, or your military, benefits, so stick it out. And then other people are like, no way, I'm not getting married because it's gonna impact my health care or benefits in some way. And so we'll kind of not get married. Regardless of all the things that culture and society says it tries to influence, the Bible brings some really clear things around what it means to be married. And we're gonna hone in on one of those specifically today. So if you have your Bible, open up Matthew chapter 19. Matthew chapter 19. And as you get there, we're gonna start in verse number 3, but I wanna give you just a little bit of context. Jesus, at this point in time in his ministry, there's a whole bunch of people that are following him. He's getting big crowds wherever he goes. And these religious leaders at the time, one group of them was the Pharisees, and they did not like this at all. Jesus was turning over the religious structure at that time. They didn't like him. Ultimately, they would be part of the group that would end up leading the charge to him being murdered and crucified. And we find this passage, a group of people around, and the Pharisees show up and they ask him this question to start to test him. And this is what sets up this passage for us. So, Matthew chapter 19, verse 3. Some Pharisees came to him, Jesus, to test him. And they asked, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any and every reason? Okay, kind of an interesting question. You go, why would he ask that question? Well, first of all, if you're the guy that asked this question, you're probably sleeping on the couch, right? Like if you're this guy, you're like, excuse me, I have a question. Your wife's like, what are you asking? But he asked this question, and there's actually a really important cultural reason why he asks this question. And it's one of the reasons why you got to dig a little bit in the context of the Bible. Because at this point in time, there was a hot debate going on between two large religious groups around the interpretation of Deuteronomy chapter 24 and verse 1, which is the Mosaic law that the people of Israel were living under that time. And I want to show you this verse real quick so you can get it. This was the Mosaic law, the verse. If a man marries a woman who becomes displeasing to him because he finds something indecent about her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce, gives it to her, and then the verse continues. And there was this hot debate between these two words to say, what does it mean for a man to find his wife like displeasing or indecent in order to give her this certificate of divorce? And one group of religious leaders was pushing really hard and saying it's only because of if it's adultery or sexual immorality, that would fall into this category. That's it. That's the displeasing and indecent. There was a whole nother group of people that were saying, oh, no, I don't see that it says that. If it's anything displeasing, anything indecent, you just give her the certificate and move on with life. So this was being hotly debated. So the Pharisees, crowd of people, Jesus standing there, and they're like, so Jesus, what do you say? Because they know no matter what answer he gives, he's going to tick off a whole bunch of people in the crowd. So they're trying to set him up. But Jesus, because he's a masterful teacher, he doesn't answer their question. He goes way under their question and gets at some really critical things connected to marriage. So let's see what he has to say. Verse number 4. Jesus says, haven't you read, he replied, that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female and said, for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. Now, there's a bunch to unpack here, so we're going to get after some of it. He starts off and he says, haven't you read that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female? This is a passage in Genesis chapter 1 that Jesus quotes and says, at the beginning, the Creator. What we find right out of the gate is marriage was God's design. Marriage was not some like cultural construct that people made up at some point. Marriage was God's design. The Creator created it to exist, and if the Creator created it, it's good. Now, in our sin and brokenness, we can mess the whole thing up, but it was designed to be good. And then he says, the Creator made them male and female. He says there was a man, there was a woman, the design of marriage, man, woman, coming together. I made it that way, and I made it, and it is supposed to be good. Then the verse continues. Because of this, for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother. Oh, this is where it gets good. Okay. You're supposed to leave your father and mother. Now, in our culture, this is where I insert the joke about the 40-year-old with 3 kids living in mom's basement and and that's true. You should leave physically. You should when you're getting married, you should leave. You should get your own house. You should establish your own home. And that should happen between a husband and wife. But I want to talk a little bit deeper, and it's in this passage as well. You need to leave emotionally. And there is a whole lot in our culture that goes wrong because husband and wife won't be united together, and they are united, the two of them against the world, and at times look at parents and have really hard conversations and say, I love you, I honor you, I respect you, but the answer is no. And if you're in a spot in your marriage and the reality is your parents have more influence in what you do or don't do in the context of your marriage than you and your spouse, it's not God's design. and it leads to chaos. Now, on the other side, this is always a good one too, because parents in the room who have married children, you go, no, I want you to be together. You go be together, but you'll be here at Thanksgiving, right? And then the in-laws go, no, you go. You'll be here for Thanksgiving, right? And let's be honest, some of us who have adult children, you are not freeing up your adult children to live the principle of this out biblically, and you're creating chaos. And you're creating undue stress in the marriage of your adult children by not allowing them to leave their father and mother and be united to their wife. Now, there's one other part of this that's really critical. This is gonna blow you away. In fact, it was super challenging to me, and I had never really thought that much about this before in this passage. But if you notice the progression, there's a husband and wife, they get married, they're to be united together. If God allows, you insert some kids into the picture, right? And then what does it say you're supposed to do with those kids? What are they supposed to do? Leave. They're supposed to leave, and then guess what's left? The two of you. You know what this means? This means, according to God's design, the most important human relationship to life, for life, in your life is your spouse. It ain't your kids. It ain't your parents. It's your spouse. And some of you go, oh shoot, did he just say that? Yes. And if you want to get mad or offended, like, you can kind of take it up with the Creator. But can we be honest? Child-centered houses where people in our culture are valuing their kids so much at the cost of spending any time or investing in the relationship with their spouse, it's chaos. And it's not God's design. So we'll continue. Leave his father and mother and be united to his wife. This word united, fascinating word. The root word of it literally means to glue. Like, that's what it means, to glue together the two of you. And this isn't like the Elmer's glue when you had it as a kid and you could, like, as long as you kept moving it around a little, you could still separate. Like, this is Gorilla Glue, folks. Like, God, Gorilla Glue, stuck together, united. And the two will become one flesh. Therefore, in light of all of this, what God has joined together. Super fascinating. Notice a third person just entered the picture. Some of you think like the pastor that stood up to do your wedding, if you were followers of Jesus, is the one that united you. Some of you thought like you just looked at each other to decide to be united. Some of you thought like your buddy that got the marriage certificate online so that he could do the wedding for you, like he kind of is the one that, joined you guys together. No. As followers of Jesus Christ, husband, wife, God glued you guys together. And he says, what God has joined together, let no one separate. No one separate. I also know this is the part where some of you go, okay, Tim, it says no one separate, but like, what about this and what about that and what about like easy? And here's what I'm gonna tell you. The Bible has some really clear, specific reasons around where there are times and extreme examples where you should and you can get a divorce. And we don't have time to go through that in this whole message, but if you find yourself in one of those challenging situations, would you reach out to us? We would love to talk to you about that. We'd love to help you work through it. But some of us jump real quick to go, give me the escape hatch, give me the loophole, when what God's design is you fight like crazy. And in any and every situation, divorce is the last resort, not the first, not the second, not the fourth, not the fifth. Like you fight for it. Because God's design is that God brings two people together, a husband and wife, and let no one separate that. Now, kind of you take this whole passage of scripture and sum it up into maybe one phrase or one word. I want to give it to you, and then we'll unpack this a little bit and talk about it. A biblical marriage, it's not a contract, it's a covenant. It's not a contract, it's not an if-then kind of relationship, it's a covenant. And here's what we mean by that, and then we'll talk about this word covenant. What we mean by that, if you want to go to the next slide, is marriage is not a contract between a husband and wife. It's not. Society, culture says a bunch of that, but what the biblical design is, it's not a contract between a husband and wife, but in fact, it's a covenant between God, a husband and wife. And a covenant has some things that are very specific to it. A contract is like, if you do these things, I'll do these things. If you do this, I'll do that. Contracts look for like the loophole. Contracts assume skepticism. A covenant, which is shown through what God did for us, as when we place our faith in him, he covenants together and says, no matter what you do, I will still show up. No matter how many times you sin, I will still be faithful to you and extend grace and mercy. No matter how often doesn't matter, we're in a covenant, I will. In fact, this is a simple way to say it. A contract, you can write this down if you want, it's not in your notes. The contract says, if you do, I will. And a covenant relationship literally just says, I will. I will. I will forgive. I will work through the difficult times. I will stay faithful. I will work hard to make our marriage great. I will fight for you. I will. So if what it means to be married by God's design is that it's not a contract, it's a covenant, what should look different and be different about covenant marriages? We're gonna walk through two of these that are in the passage, and hopefully they'll help you even bring more clarity to what it means to be married. The first one is this. It's his design, God's design, before our desires. His design before our desires. Marriage was God's idea. It was his design. Leaving your family, be united to your spouse, his design. Covenant reality of two people becoming one flesh, his design. Highest human commitment to your spouse, his design. Like, God created this to be an amazing thing that is so good. And when God creates something that is designed to be so good, we wouldn't be surprised that we have an enemy. We just finished with the Enemy's Playbook series. We shouldn't be surprised that we have an enemy that tries to twist it to make it destructive, challenging, and difficult. In fact, some of the destructive thinking that's in and around, and to be honest, in many of us, is these kind of things. Marriage can be whatever two people want it to be. Y'all two just got to decide it can be whatever you want it to be, right? Marriage is a cultural construct. Marriage is really, at the end of the day, just about sex, right? Like, you do everything else. It's really just about sex. Or marriage is just about companionship. So when that's gone or that's not there any longer, like, you just move on, find a different friend to be married to. Marriage is just a piece of paper or legal status. Like, all of these things has infiltrated our culture and maybe even your own mindset around marriage, but that's not what God's design is. At times, it may be what we desire it to be, so that we can get out of it if we want, or that we can feel okay about not working it hard as our marriage, or whatever it is, but it's not God's design. My wife is kind of a DIYer. She does a bunch of projects, and she's crafty and does all these different things, super creative. And so we end up in our house a lot using a product called epoxy, okay? So if you know anything about epoxies, this is like crazy bonding, like adhesive product. And it starts off as these two different things. There's a resin, there's a hardener. You pour these things together, you mix them up, And then all of a sudden, both of those entities come together and they literally change at like a molecular level. Once that all comes together, like good luck trying to separate that back out somehow. Like it doesn't work that way. You put them together, you mix them up, and then what's powerful is they bond together in a way that really is like so much better than glue or other stuff, and it hardens together and they are together. That is God's design for marriage at the core. It's a husband, it's a wife that says, we're over here, we're coming together, let's mix it all up. And then we are bonded together, a deep spiritual level, committed to each other for life, and we are a force to be reckoned with when we are together. God's design for marriage is that the most important human relationship in our life for life is our spouse. And you go, that's kind of crazy, Tim. It's kind of crazy. But if you can really think about it, even like secular psychologists have done studies, and you know this to be true. They've done studies about kids that are in houses and households where the mom and dad are together and they love each other and they even value each other above their children, and the safety and security that that child finds in a house like that. Like there's studies all over the place. It's the best for human flourishing. There's another troubling reality that goes along with this that we're seeing in our culture over and over and over. And it's called, some people call it gray divorce or empty nest divorce. And it's one of the highest divorce rates in our culture and society right now is people who are hitting close to empty nest or hit empty nest and then they get divorced. In fact, since the 1990s, it's more than doubled, that divorce rate. Why? Well, you could tell me why. You know why. You live in the culture. Because there's a bunch of people who are husband and wife, and you get busy with life and make it all about your kids, and you don't focus on each other, and then there's hurt that takes place and pain that takes place, and you're like, sweep that under the rug. And we don't deal with it, and then we drift, and we turn into like functional kind of relationships that are contractual. We just are teammates. And then it's time for the kids to leave, and husband and wife look at each other and they're like, not only do I not know you, like I don't even know that I like you. And we go, what are we together for? And you just walk away. And man, as I went through this, like I got emotional thinking about the number of people that would be sitting in this room that the reality is, if nothing shifts in your marriage, that's exactly where you're headed. And yet, God's design is different, and it's better, and you don't have to end up there. In fact, and I know this is offensive, some of you, like, you're not gonna like this. But if you are fighting harder to have a right relationship with your children than you are with your spouse, it's outside of God's design. And you go, what? Are you kidding me? Like, you don't even know my spouse. They're a jerk. You don't know, they've lied to me. You don't know the struggle that it's been. You know what I do know? Your kids are jerks. You know what I know? Your kids have lied to you. Your kids have offended you. You've had to forgive your kids how many times? And yet, come on, you chase them. And you chase them. And you say, over my body, you're gonna have to walk 7 times if you wanna walk away from this family. And we do that. And yet, for some reason, when it comes to our spouses, it's like, I don't know, you kind of ticked me off today. I'm not gonna talk to you for 4 days. What? Men, some of you in this room, this afternoon, you need to go home and you need to sit with your wife and you need to take personal responsibility for the fact that you've built a contractual marriage and you have not fought for your wife, and you need to apologize, and you need to say, honey, it's going to be different because I'm going to be committed to you. And say, I'm sorry. I'm gonna chase you, and I'm gonna win you back. And some of you wives in the room, you need to look at your husband, you say, oh my gosh, I put the kids like so up here, and you're like so down here. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I wasn't even trying maybe to do it on purpose or this or that, but like, you've got to be more of a priority to me, and I'm committed to doing that. And I'm sorry. And I'm gonna work on it. And I'm gonna be committed to you. Some of you, here we go. Some of you, you're gonna need to sit down with your kids today. And together you need to sit down with your kids and you need to apologize together because you have put your children above your marriage and your relationship. And you need to look at them and you need to say, Mom and Dad, we're sorry. Because we have focused so much on you and your stuff and trying to keep like everything going in your world, we've neglected ourselves. And it's not right and it's not God's design. And you need to look at them and say, so guess what? Mom and I are gonna be going on some date nights. And we're gonna be going to some nice dinners, and guess what? You get to stay at home. And then you can tell them, and guess what else we're doing? We're planning a sweet vacation, and we're not taking you. In fact, we're gonna spend more money on that vacation than the vacation with you. And you know why? Because I love your mom more. And your kid's gonna go, what? No. But you know what they're gonna feel in their gut? You know what they're gonna feel in their gut? Man, I'm glad my parents are fighting for each other. And I'm glad my parents love each other. Man, we've gotten it so backwards. And it creates so much chaos. And man, if you're sitting here and you're going, whoa, can I just encourage you, start from today. Just start from today. And take the steps forward that you need to take. All right, that's the first one. We got another one, so here we go. The second way covenant marriage looks different than a contract marriage is this. Him before you and you before me. At the core, this is what we're saying. God comes before your spouse, and your spouse comes before you. That's the correct order in God's design. I want to show you a little illustration because it'll help kind of show all this together. If it's a triangle, and a lot of those of us even who are followers of Jesus Christ, we look at it this way and we go, yeah, husband and wife, we're joined together and like God's a part of it, right? God sits up here, he talks sometimes, he's a part of it at times, like that kind of stuff. Actually, if you back up the way God's design is, it actually starts before marriage, and it looks like this, that the husband is saying, I'm pursuing God. The wife says, I'm pursuing God, regardless of the relationship I'm in or not. And then when I get married, boom, it's God that joins us together. And now we've got this that's going on, and it's a covenant between three people. And here's what's powerful about this illustration. As the husband and the wife grow closer and closer and closer to God, they also grow closer and closer and closer to each other. And it's this beautiful design that when we put God first and then our spouse second, it's this beautiful design that takes place, that we thrive in our connection to God and grow in our connection and relationship with each other. And here's what I know also. Some of you in the room, you go, that's great, Tim. My spouse doesn't follow Jesus. My spouse wants nothing to do with Jesus. What do I do? And I want to share this with you because there's a powerful part of this as well in this triangle. Can I just tell you, regardless of what your spouse does or doesn't do, you are called to pursue God first. You are called to pursue God first. So it's okay, like, with your spouse, if it's like, oh, what should the thermostat be set at? And they say a certain number, you're like, okay, good, we'll go with yours. Or what restaurant do you want to go to? They say whatever, and you're like, good, we'll go with yours. But it's when it's like, what is the purpose of our life? What's the direction of our life? What should we be pursuing in life? It's like, sorry, honey, Like God is first. And that order is deeply important, regardless of where you are in your marriage. When we see all of this for what it is and God's design, at the end of the day, there's really maybe only one response that we have, and it's your action step for this week. And it's a fun one, and it's this. You got to burn the contract. You got to literally take your marriage contract. It says, if you all these things, and I will all these things, and you got to take it, and you got to light it. I'm not going to really light it on fire. Some people were hoping, others were holding their breath. Here's the fun part. I'll just tell you. I actually practiced it, lighting it, and stuff started flying everywhere. And I was like, and it burns really fast too. So we're not going to light it. But some of you, if you're married, you need to go home today. And you need to sit down, and there needs to be like a come to Jesus meeting, a like, I apologize, I take responsibility for the things of the contract, and you and your spouse write them down, and then go out in the backyard and light the thing on fire. And then you hold hands together, and you pray together, and you say, I'm gonna fight like crazy. And if you're in the room and your spouse isn't on board, you need to do it anyway. And write it down and then burn that contract. And say, God, give me the strength to be in a covenant relationship with my spouse, connected deeply to you. In the end, no matter where you are, there's hope because of this. This is your last note. Our hope is this, that the beauty of the gospel shows up in the messiness of marriage. The beauty of the gospel, the beauty of the message of Jesus Christ shows up in the messiness of marriage. If you've been married for 10 minutes, you know it's messy. It's messy, it's hard. And yet, at the core, what the gospel, the good news of Jesus says is, no matter what, I will. No matter how many times you fail me, I will. And Jesus fought for us all the way down to giving his life. And the beauty of that shows up in all the messiness of marriage. I want to end by telling you a story from my own life. I actually shared this several years ago in a message here at Grace. But it was made so much sense to this, I just want to share it again. I have a grandmother. She's actually still my only, at this point, my only living grandmother, 96 years old. She's an amazing lady. Our daughter, Kayla, her middle name is named after my grandmother, Elizabeth. And my grandma met my grandfather. They got married young and went on with life and had my dad, had my aunt going on with life. And then my grandmother became a follower of Jesus. She became a Christian. And not only was my grandfather not really just not okay with my grandmother really pursuing Jesus, he actually made it pretty difficult for her in some areas and in some ways. And at certain times and in certain spaces was actually fairly even hostile to the things of Jesus. And I remember, for decades, my grandmother staying faithful to God, staying faithful to my grandfather, loving him, doing her best to still pursue him and pursue God. And it was tough. And I was just a kid. I didn't know anything, but I even saw some stuff at times that I was like, my goodness, Grandma, what are you still doing? And yet she was faithful. And in his late 60s, my grandfather accepted Jesus. Because my grandma stuck with it. And I know some of you are in incredibly challenging situations. Some of you, even as I say this, you're like, man, Tim, we got a lot of work to back up and undo some things and then keep working on stuff. Some of you, you're just kind of grown bored and stale. But what I can tell you is if we serve a God that can step into that relationship that I'm deeply aware of, and he can rescue that and redeem that, he could do the same for you and where you are. But man, we gotta be committed to it. We gotta be committed to God's design. We gotta be committed to fight for it. And not just so that we can like gut it out, and no, because there's joy and there's hope and there's showing the glory of God in the name of Jesus, helping other people who are struggling. Like all of that is in play when we pursue God's design for marriage and what it means to be married. It's not a contract. It is a covenant together. Two people for life committed. Let me pray. Father, thank you for the clarity of your word. Father, thank you for the hope that we find in the middle of the messiness of all of it. Father, I pray that we would clearly run after what you tell us in the Bible, not just what all the other culture around us is. And God, for those of us that need to take some really, really big steps, I pray that you give us the courage to do it. And Father, that even for some people in this room, maybe many people in this room, they look back on this day and this moment, this weekend, where you began to shift things in them to make them more like your Son, Jesus Christ, and live out the design that you have for us. We thank you. We love you. It's in Jesus' name. Amen.